Buddy, I'll be upstairs. What's up, man? Got the 4-year-old home from school today. He is, I think he is faking sick on us. He allegedly said he was sick, but upon further review, once we got home, he seems to be just fine. So
You say to play video games?
he's just messing with us. He's like, I just don't feel I need a mental health day. I'm checking out of school for the day. So yeah. Yeah, man, how you been?
Good. It's man, it's a lot. Building a CRM is a lot. It's a lot. It's about 10 times more complicated than what we were before. I was saying 6 times. I think it's closer to 10 times more complicated.
Yeah, you've seen that 10x book before?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never read it, but it's essentially it's like, yeah, it's always 10x more work and harder than you expect it to be when you set out for it. So the good news is I had a call with somebody that Nate Schweppe, just from Yeti Roofing, and he was talking about how he's got on with you guys and he's setting that up. And I'm like, awesome, man. That's great to hear it. And so, yeah, he was talking to me about Zen Booker because that was something he asked about. And I'm like, dude, you don't need this yet. You're not at that point for the volume that you're doing. But more importantly, I'm like, if Calendly is working, A, for the volume you're doing, but B, it's already set up and like you guys have this. I was like, just wait and see, because any of the stuff that's in something like a Zen Booker, just give it time. And there's always the route. Like if you get so busy that you need a feature like that, great, let's implement it. And you can always pay, and like I'm sure that can get set up and integrated. But as like for the most part, what he wanted was making it easy for an intake for answering service or assistant type person. And so I'm like, I honestly think with the right training and a easy guide, like it's not that hard to input that data and get what you need into ProLine. So, but I was like, as is the case, if ProLine can talk to something that it doesn't do, I mean, it's just a matter of a connection, if that's the case, right? Or are you trying to stay away from those things?
No, we happy to integrate.
Okay.
I agree with what you told him. I think that especially for where he's at, I think Calendly is going to be the best fit. I mean, that's John's still using Calendly, and like it's a lot simpler of a connection to go from Calendly to ProLine than ZenBooker to ProLine. That we can definitely do. So with the new system, especially like I had in the back of my head ZenBooker a little bit when I was building out our Zaps for the event scheduling and on our
Yeah.
side. There is more. It would be easier than when we did it for you to do it with the new system. But I totally agree with you. I don't think Edward was on that call with Nate Schwepp as well. Nate was awesome. Really looking forward to getting it all set up for him. But yeah, I don't think he would get a lot of extra value out of that at this stage.
No, that's what I said too. So it was I was like, I kind of was one of those calls where I'm like, at this point I'm just trying to get my name out in front of some people. So one of the things I did for him too was I sent him a list of I got this new software I used once in the past. I'm now reusing it. It's called Smappin'. But essentially I used it for drive radiuses on Google to get drive radiuses to set territory for ourselves.
Yeah.
And now they've got some cool extra features in it where you can do points of interest. And by points of interest, it's like search on the map for manufacturing companies. And so he's like, hey, I want to get more into commercial coatings, blah, blah, blah. I said, all right, let me use this and I'll send you over this list. And so I sent him a list of like 150 people. It's all within the 1 hour drive radius that on a Google listing, it says like they fall under the manufacturer or food processor or X, Y, and Z. But it gives them the name, the address, the phone number. And so I'm like, man, this would be really sweet if we can set up some like ProLine automations where it's like, hey, these are something where I have some customers where I know that I told him what he needs to do is be calling the customers and like get an in with them and like say, hey, I'm looking for a space to lease the building. I'm a roofing company. Oh, by the way, do you need any roofing work? And then if they say yes and like put you on the list, I'm like, that's where we move them to a status in ProLine and we drop them into a just kind of a re-engagement campaign for you. But you're going to need somebody to call all those people really to get that kind of rolling. I was like, we don't want to do just a mass text and get this stuff. Like, this is not the approach that we're going to use for something like that. Hey, buddy.
You can, like, ProLine could be set up for that, but he is very likely he'd get his registration revoked with the phone carriers the way it's set
right.
up.
Hold on a second. What's up, man?
Showing a bit.
Okay, I'll be right. I'll down in just a little bit. Okay. Okay. Thank you for being patient. You can go play with your Magnetos. Yeah, and that's what I kind of was prefacing this with, where it's like, okay, there's certain things that you don't want to abuse the format of it, but once you get them in there, it's like, this is where the remarketing aspect of ProLine really kicks in, because it's like, hey, I'll just put you on the list, and now you're not going to bug them, but you've gotten their email, you've been allowed to send them something, and now it's a friendly text, like, or email from them, 3 months down the road, just as a check-in. So I was like, this would be a great way to find, like, so for us locally, Allie was asking me about real estate agents, and I said, here we go. And it's cool because not only does it show you all the main offices, but then I took it into Excel and I said, show me all the duplicates so I can see which are the offices that really have like 15 sub agents within that brokerage. And so it's like, oh, not only is it Keller Williams Birmingham, but it's got 14 other agents all listed at the same office with all their other different businesses on there. And so, but I'm working. You gotta let them. But I'm like, this is a tool where it's like, it's kind of some of the stuff that dope marketing can get, I feel like, and what they include in their platform, but it's part of this software now where I'm like, hey, there's a lot of different, what's your ideal customer? And we can get that customer list for it, and then just start building those databases of potential future people that we want to put. And so now it's like, all right, great. We've got the front end approach with the virtual assistant team, or maybe somebody's got their own calling person. And then you got the ProLine set up on that backside to then engage them on the predetermined campaigns, and based on like, this is where I see the filters of like, hey, all these different if then buckets for ProLine.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey, you might be shingle roof, you might be commercial roof, you might be coatings. Great, I'm going to drop you into all of these. Oh, you're just shingles. Great, I'm just going to drop you into that bucket. So,
he's curious.
He is. Oh. Can you go back down and go to Magnet's house, and I'll give you some yogurt melts? I'll give you some yogurt melts, but do not take that downstairs. Yeah.
Going upstairs.
How, buddy? Okay, well, let me go get you a show on. We'll go turn on a show while we walk back downstairs. Okay, and then we'll keep talking to AJ. So yeah, so what are you going to talk about today?
I'm gonna talk about setting up and running a rehash campaign, but we'll kind of be going over the whole process of like setting up a new campaign, so that you'll see that process in general, like, which will be really helpful. But specifically, we're going to look at setting up and running a rehash campaign in ProLine's new version, and what that process looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing my screen. If everyone can just turn your mics off, I'm just going to start presenting. So let me get through it and take any notes that you have, and write any questions down, and then let's do questions at the end. So let me kind of walk through the whole process, start to finish. Then we'll do questions. Okay. Share my screen. Okay. So also, this is kind of a bit of an experiment. So this is our ProLine Pro School, first ProLine Pro School. So I'm kind of just feeling this out. I think we'll get the format down a little bit more. We really want to make this a consistent weekly thing, and record it every week. I think we'll probably set it up more as like a webinar format in the future, but just to get started, we're just gonna do a normal Zoom call. But today the topic is how to set up and run a lead rehash campaign in ProLine CRM, the new ProLine CRM. So in the new ProLine CRM, unlike the old version where you saw the campaigns right here, this is now stages and pipelines, which are different than campaigns. Campaigns now live in this campaigns area, which you can access through the menu. So you're going to go to the campaigns area. And what you see here on the campaigns area is folders. Folders contain any number of campaigns. So this is a good way to organize the campaigns that are in your account. And let me go this. Organize. Hold on 1 second. Okay. There we go. And so if I can click on any one of these campaigns, so sales follow-up, for example, and I can see the different campaigns that are in sales follow-up. I can see how many people are currently in that campaign, as well as how many steps it has. So this retail roof campaign has 38 steps and has 4 contacts currently in it. So this is the way that campaigns are organized in the new ProLine CRM. And to create, so I think we have it. Yeah, we have a lead rehash folder right here already. And then we have a lead rehash campaign already set up. I'm going to kind of pretend like that's not there. I'm going to do this completely from scratch. Let me see if I can. We're just going to stop this campaign. I'm going to delete this and we're going to kind of build it again up from scratch. I'm going to delete this campaign. Here, delete this folder. So in this campaigns area, I'm going to start by creating a new folder. Now, if you already, all of our ProLine accounts already have usually a lead rehash folder with a rehash campaign, but if you need to create it, or maybe you're creating something else other than rehash, the first thing is to make sure you either have a folder you want to create it in, so you can go into that, or you can create a new folder from scratch. So I'm going to create a lead rehash folder here, choose a color for it. I can also add a description if I like as well. You don't have to, but you can if you want to add a description, just so that there's a little bit more information on this page on what is in each folder. You now click on the folder, go to new campaign and create the campaign. So I'm going to call this lead rehash. And we have some different options for how we want to, like what the content of this campaign is going to be, or we have different templates that we have that you can use, but I'm just going to just leave it lead rehash. Sometimes if you want to have multiple lead rehashes, you might want to label them like lead rehash general, lead rehash roofing. But if you just have one, just call it lead rehash. I can optionally clone a different campaign already in my account. So I could select another campaign to clone so it brings over the same content. Otherwise, I'm going to deselect that and click create. So now we have this campaign that is connected. And I'm going to go to edit campaign. And there's nothing in this campaign right now, but and if I wanted to, I could build out a campaign completely from scratch. So I could go step by step. I could add an email, fill out the email information, add a text, go step by step, choose what start mode I wanted, all that. But instead, to save myself some time, I'm going to use one of ProLine's pre-populated campaigns. So I'm going to go here. We have, if I open it, sometimes when you open it the first time, it'll be too narrow, but it'll expand if you open it twice. So going to lead rehash here, I have all of these different options for different types of lead rehash. The home improvement one, this is just going to be very generic, just reaching out, rehashing these leads to see if these leads need any home improvement services. Residential exteriors is a little bit more specific. So we're specifically asking about, does your home need any exterior work done? Residential plus commercial, it's just a variation on the residential that could be, this would most commonly be used if you just have a big list of leads that are both commercial and residential and you want to rehash them all together and you don't have any way of separating them. It'd always be better to separate them if you can, but maybe you don't have that ability. Maybe it's all in one big list. You could use this to sort of very generically reach out. And then we have the roofing specific templates as well, residential roofing and commercial roofing. Now, of course, this doesn't cover everything. Maybe you want to have something that's specifically around gutters or something like that. That's great. You can start with one of these existing templates and then customize it. But for most roofing companies, one of these should cover your needs. We're going to just go with the regular residential roofing one. I can select to delete any existing steps, but there's no existing steps in this campaign, so I don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to click add, and then ProLine is going to get to work here, adding in those steps from the template for me. And it does take just a minute to do that. This doesn't all come in instantly. So just make sure to give it the time to do that. Now, by default, this campaign has a queue contact step, which defaults to 35 contacts per day. The queue contact step is what allows you, for the Rehash campaign specifically, this is the main use case for it. It allows you to upload any number of contacts into this campaign, and you don't have to worry about them all getting contacted at the same time. So whatever number you put in this lead rehash or this queue contact step, 35, 50, could be 100, or it could be 5 or 10, whatever you're most comfortable with. That's how many contacts ProLine is going to allow through on a given per day that people are in the campaign. So this controls the flow of contacts into this lead rehash campaign. 35 usually is pretty good, especially if you just have like a couple sales reps. You probably don't want to overload them. So 35 is a pretty good number, and that's why we default to that. If you have a very large team and the lead rehash is spread across, it also depends on you. Is the lead rehash spread across all your sales reps, or is there like one person that's responding to all lead rehash responses? So that's another determining factor as well. But say you have the lead rehash spread out across all of your sales reps, and you have 10 sales reps. Well, maybe you do want to do 100 a day or 150 a day to make sure there's activity being generated for everybody. So we have all this pre-written content filled out for lead rehash that's already tested. It's been used in a lot of different companies and it's worked extremely well. But of course, you can customize any of this that you want. You just change it and then hit save, and the new version will save. Just make sure to be careful about these variables, that you don't damage them, or if you do accidentally remove one of the brackets, that can lead to it not working correctly, not being replaced by the value that normally goes there. So just be careful with that. So yeah, we have this campaign set up here. I don't want to go too deep into customizing it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it off for right now, just to be on the safe side. But when I do want this to start running, I got to remember to turn it on. So it's not currently on. I just made it so it's campaigns start off by default. So if I add contacts to this campaign, it will queue up the contacts, but it's not going to start running the campaign until I hit play. And that's usually better, especially since I'm about to talk about importing or uploading content or new contacts into this campaign. I generally don't want to import contacts to an active campaign. It's usually a bad practice. So I want to have the campaign off for right now. I'm going to import, add everything into it. Then I'll turn it on once I know everything is good to go and ready to go. So I'll leave that off for right now. So that is adding the campaign. We have this lead rehash campaign now in ProLine. So the next step here is, how do we get contacts into this campaign? There's a few different ways that we can do this. We obviously don't want to, we could do it manually. So some companies do want to have like a lead rehash campaign set up that they can drag projects into that have been, hanging around in leads for too long, or they can automate that after a certain amount of time. They can move it into lead rehash. But most likely you're going to want the most common use case for lead rehash is when you're starting with ProLine, or you just have a bunch of leads on a list that you want to get put into this campaign. That's the most common use case. There's a couple different ways to do this. You can actually just add contacts directly to that campaign and not worry about any of the project side of ProLine. And it's tough. It's sort of a case-by-case basis, whether that's what makes sense. But you can also create a stage in ProLine. So we could go to the stages here, and I could create a lead rehash stage. So I could create lead rehash here. And then I can go to that stage here in that sales pipeline, and I can add a trigger. And I can have this trigger that lead rehash campaign that I created. And if I'm going to turn on that trigger. And so now any project that gets added to this lead rehash stage will start this lead rehash campaign. Now, another thing that you can do with these triggers is maybe you want to layer in, if you do have separate lead rehashes, maybe one for commercial, one for residential, you could add additional triggers for those that other types of lead rehash campaigns and then add filters. For example, I could make only residential projects go to this lead rehash, and then I could make all commercial projects go to a different lead rehash campaign. So that's kind of how these triggers work, is it allows you to filter contacts into different campaigns based on project data. But we only have the one lead rehash campaign, so we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to just send everything that gets put into this stage directly into lead rehash. Now, I can just manually drag projects in here and drop them. That's something that I can do. That's one way of adding people to the lead rehash. Another way is I can go into my project list. I could filter by tags or statuses. And so if I do like new leads, for example, and I do tags, maybe started stage before, I want everything that started before June 1st. I can show those projects. I can then bulk edit, and I can I could start the campaign directly from here without moving them, or I could select to move these projects to that new rehash stage. And that would start the campaign as well as move them over to lead rehash. This is one way of potentially starting it. You could also target specific contacts. So you could say contacts that are in one of the speed to lead campaigns. So Roof Quote Pro leads, for example, I could say, hey, show me all. So I guess in this account, there's not anything there, but speed to lead, let's do website leads. So I can say website leads, show me all the contacts that were in website leads, maybe website leads that started the campaign before June 1st. And then I can bulk edit and start that rehash campaign through here. So the contact list and the project list are ways of bulk starting, either bulk moving projects to a new stage or bulk starting a campaign. So these are two ways that you can do stuff in bulk, but all of this that we've looked at so far is how to start the rehash for contacts and projects that are already in ProLine, right? So let's look at how do we start the rehash for a list of contacts or projects that you have from a different platform that are not in ProLine yet. And the way you're going to do that is through our CSV importer. Through the CSV importer, you do have two options here. And again, it's just a case by case. Generally speaking, if you have project related data, I would tend towards importing the projects. So using this import projects from CSV and importing a list of new projects. But if all you have is just like name, email, phone number, like it's a very, very bare bones list, you might opt to go in the contact route. Just know that if you import only contacts, these contacts are not going to show up on the projects page. They're not going to show up in this lead rehash stage. They're only going to be in that lead rehash campaign. So if you do, I think that's the main question on which importer to use is, do you want all of these items that you're uploading to go into lead rehash? Do you want them to show up on your projects page as projects? That's the main question to answer. And if the answer is no, then you need to import just the contacts themselves directly into that campaign. If the answer is yes, I do want to be able to go to on my project page, I want to be able to go to a specific stage and see everything that's in lead rehash, then you'll want to import things as projects. And I would, if you don't know the answer, I would generally tend towards uploading things as projects, because that's the most complete sort of data object in ProLine now, is having a project and a contact. Because when you upload projects, it's going to create the contacts anyway. Whereas if you just have the contacts, it's a little bit harder to manage because they're in the background more of ProLine now. So on this CSV import project importer, I'm going to go to new import. I can download a sample project upload sheet that gives me a list of projects. So this is just if you need kind of a framework to use to make sure your data is set up correctly. The importer is very forgiving. So you can often just take whatever data you have, upload it and you'll have to kind of match columns when you're doing the upload. But if you use this sheet and pull the data in this sheet first, then a lot of the column matching for the upload gets automatically handled. And you get a better idea of what data you have, you're able to upload easily. So I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit. We're just gonna do these 3. And when I'm uploading a list of projects, I need to make sure that I put the name of the stage that I want to upload to. So this name of the stage is lead rehash. So I'm going to put that in here. The capitalization doesn't matter. It just needs to exactly match word for word where I want these projects to go. And you can see over here, I have areas for contact phone and contact email and contact last name. So I have all of this in here already. I don't actually have to include it for everybody. It's actually, all you have to really have is a first name. But of course, if you have the data, then you should put it in. You should definitely put it in. Let me add some randomization to these numbers because I think we might have contacts that already match those that are in this demo account. All right, so looking. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay. So I'm going to upload this list of 3. Change the name of this. Okay. So when I upload the list, I get this. I select the header row, and then I hit next. And then as you can see, ProLine has automatically matched all the columns in the file for me. If I was using a different document, or if I didn't use the sample document as a starting point, I might have to actually match the columns manually. So I can now submit that. It's going to upload these projects into ProLine. And that will take a second. So I can see that project is now populated into the lead rehash stage here. And Aaron Flanders, and should do Abe next. Yep, there we go. So we have our 3 projects here. If I go down to view campaigns, I can see that Abe, the contact for this project, has been added to the lead rehash campaign as well. So we now have all 3 of these contacts in that campaign. We're also able to see them in that lead rehash stage here. If we just uploaded the contacts and not the projects, then we wouldn't see them here, but we would be able to search for them. And so I could search for Abe and find the contact and view and see that it's in the campaign. I can also go to the campaign here, and I can see all 3 of the contacts here. So you can also just go to the campaign itself and see everybody that's in it. All right, so now the last step would be going to the campaign and turning it on. Now that I have my contacts in the campaign that I want to run lead rehash for, I would enable the campaign. It's going to queue up the contacts, and it's going to start dripping them into the rest of the lead rehash accordingly. And that is it. So what questions do we have?
Recommended quantities to start off for lead rehash. I know you said like 35 if you have maybe 3 sales guys. So like if people don't have a answering service / call person to like be on that, let's say it's a 1-man shop type of setup where it's like, hey man, this is helping me do the follow-ups, but I don't want to get overwhelmed and then have too many people at the end of the day. Like, is there a Do you guys have some sort of ratio for that or suggestion?
Or are you talking about for the queue contact step or the
Yeah, like
list that
yeah,
gets
what are
up?
you going to start with? Like, I know it's you're just going to take whatever customers you have, but then how many per day do you recommend so somebody doesn't get overwhelmed? Because I think we started, maybe it was 15 or something, when we put that out initially. But what do you guys suggest, or anybody? Is it kind of just whatever you want?
Kind of feel it out. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot depends. Like sometimes the quality of the list determines that too. It's like if there's a lot of it's if there's some guard like it depends on like the source of the list. If you just took everybody out of your old CRM or something, it's like, hey, just run it for everybody, right? There could be a lot of gunk in there. There could be like, fake leads or marketers that were in there as well as actual customers. So that, that could lead to needing to have a higher number there. If it's a really high quality list, it's all people that you previously talked to that just fell off the map. You might need to go a little bit lower. I would generally say 35. Like the general rule is 35 per day per person who is focused on doing this 100%. So if you have sales reps doing this and their time is split, right? They're they're out doing jobs when they're also answering lead rehash responses. I probably wouldn't say 35 per sales rep. I'd probably say more like 20 per sales rep. It's just sort of like a judgment call on that. But like if you take the number of people that are responding to lead rehash that are, ProLine's going to send lead rehash on behalf of, and therefore they're going to get responses. If you take that number, you multiply it by 35, that's kind of a starting number. And then you adjust from there based on how much time those people have and how busy they are. What we see a lot, especially in smaller companies, is the lead rehash gets sent from the office admin. And so like often like 35 is okay for them to handle because it just ends up being, it just is additional lead flow is really all it
Yep.
is. Like it's going to get sent out from the admin, and then the responses back are just going to be treated like a new inbound lead, even though it's someone that they talked to in the past. And that works for a lot of companies. The one an alternative way to sort of set it up is you might have a list of old projects that you never closed, but they had sales reps assigned to them. And so someone talked to them on your team in the past. Maybe it was last year, but they have a relationship with someone on your team. If possible, it's always nice to be able to upload those into ProLine with the assigned sales rep, which you can do. And then that way they're assigned to that sales rep on the ProLine side. And then when you run the campaign, they're getting a text and email from this person that they talked to in the past rather than someone new. So that's the situation where I'd say, okay, maybe up this from 35 and add an additional maybe 20 per sales rep depending on how much time. If they have a lot of time on their hands, say, but make it 35, make it 45, 50, like maybe a little bit. If it's maybe it's a slow part of the season or something, they got time on their hands. But if they're already like kind of busy, maybe 15 or 20 per sales rep that you have like that. But it also it's hard because you can't really guarantee that a specific sales rep is going to, it's not necessarily even when you do that. You could have a day where most of the contacts that go through are for one sales rep. So even that being the case, like I would be really shy of going over 100 per day. We have done that before, but it was for a company that were rehashing. I'm pretty sure the rehash is still running, but we were rehashing 100 per day, and they had 7,000 contacts to rehash. So that gives you an idea of like 100 is appropriate because they had a big team. The rehash was assigned out across their team, and they had 7,000 people. So it's just like continues to drip out. It's still dripping out now. Like they're continuing to get value, but that was, I don't know. They might have changed it. They might have sped it up, but
no, that gives some clarity to it at least. And it's more of the just making sure the people that don't have that support don't overload themselves. But really it's like, even if you send out 30 a day, what 10% may respond that day sometimes. Like it's not like all 20 people are calling you right that second. So
right. 35 is like the safe number for one person running it, where generally 35 is going to result in like 2 to 3 extra conversations a day, maybe 5 extra conversations if on a good day. And then like you're saying, it can kind of snowball a little bit because like sometimes someone won't respond until the next day. So it does snowball a little bit as you start doing it. You might end up with some slightly bigger days. But
It's kind of like thinking of it like almost like the postcard marketing from Dope to some degree, where it's like, how many neighbors do you want to have that postcard get sent to? And it's a similar thing where it's like you'll find that comfortable spot. And then if you have 1 week or day where you're like, oh, shoot, this is too many, it's like, okay, you can turn it back down. But yeah, I think that sounds like a good starting point for people then. So that helps.
Yeah. One little thing, you can always change the number in here, but one thing to keep in mind is every time you change this number, ProLine has to like recalculate for all the contacts. So if you do have like 1,000 contacts in the rehash and you have 1,000 contacts waiting here, and then you change this from 35 to 50, just know that it's going to take ProLine a couple hours to fully reschedule everybody out. Because that we have had a couple bug reports about that. We're like, hey, I'm changing the contacts per day, and I'm not seeing like the contacts get rescheduled or changed, and it's just because it takes ProLine a while to get to like it's not an immediate switch, if that makes sense. So just be patient if you do change this, and I generally like try to figure out the right number ahead of time. You can change it for sure, but try to find out the right number like before you turn on the rehash. It's better not to mess with it unless you have to. So, all right. Any what else we got? John, do you have a question?
Nope.
What else shouldn't we do when setting these up? What are the mistakes the common mistakes when people set them up, maybe?
A common mistake that run into is just turning on the campaign too early. It's not as big an issue with lead rehash as it is with maybe some other types of campaigns where there's not a queue contacts, but I would just like, don't turn the campaign on until you are ready for messages to start getting sent. So that's kind of a bigger one. I'm trying to think. We're still feeling this out with the new system and feeling out how to make it work best. One of the biggest differences between this system and what we had before was just that there was a lot more. It was like very in your face when there was a bunch of contacts in a campaign, right? It's like you could see up front how many contacts were in a campaign. With this new system, just by that structure of we have the stages and the projects now, and that's the main focus. It can make it a little bit less transparent who's in a campaign. Now we've tried to compensate for that by just having a lot of these view campaign buttons everywhere, so you can just very easily see what's going on for a contact. You can also, on the campaign side, you can go to you can go in here now and just click the little people there, or you can go into the campaign and click it here and it will show you everybody that's in the campaign. So there's the things we're trying to do to make it more transparent. I don't know, it's not necessarily an issue, but it's just, I guess some people, they don't double check it. They're like, they do an upload or something and they don't check to make sure that everything worked correctly, and then they'll end up with, the contacts actually didn't go into the campaign, or the campaign wasn't running, or something or other. And so it's just like, when you're setting this up, there's multiple things here that can go wrong. And so just like making sure to check and make sure that everything went into the right place is important. Just like, at the end of the day, just double checking everything is important. Not just assuming that it's working correctly.
Do we have analytics on that analytics page where you can show like how many texts got sent from each of those different things now, like different campaigns or whatever?
We have it based off. That's actually a pretty good idea, if there was a way to maybe tie it to campaigns.
Because like what I think would be cool, and this is again where I keep going back to all this, is like some of these reporting features where there's the little data pieces that you're like, oh, this is something I need to focus on. And so whether it's like, I don't know, just the campaigns that it is, like which are getting my bigger hit rates, or we can look back and see like, hey, here I do a new lead rehash where I've customized my first 5 messages for something different, and now my hit rates are higher on, like, my open rates are higher on those or something. Just
Yeah.
stuff where I like, you know what I'm getting at there.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of that yet. And
That's
we will add some of that. It's not the highest on the priority because we have so much else we're refining, but it is a really good. It
Why do you
would be
need sleep?
nice.
Just keep every day, just work all day long.
It is something that we want to dial in. It's like having more transparency around like open rates and stuff like that. We do track opens, but it just gets tracked on like a per contact basis. So you just see in the activity you see opens.
In in the
But
meantime, is this stuff that could be exportable like into a CSV or something on a case by case basis? Like, let's say I wanted to do some analytics on some campaigns I write up myself and compare like some things. Like, is that something? And I'm not asking for you to do more work. It's just more of a,
yeah.
if it's available, I'd look for that data and I'd be curious, but
No, the problem is the data is not there. That's the problem.
fine. Nope,
If
that's
it was
cool.
there, I would expose it in some way so it was visible. But yeah, right now it's like that data, it doesn't really exist. Like when the text messages get sent, we're not tracking. We track whether or not they're automated. We don't track what like which campaign or which step they came from. But it's definitely something that could be done. It's just hasn't been set up yet.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. Definitely something that could be done though. Right. In the short run, where we're at right now is there is so much that we need to refine on the CRM project side that it's going to be a minute before we get back to making more improvements on the automation side, because we're already, the way we're looking at it is like we're leagues ahead of every other CRM on the automation side already. So like, yes, we want to get better at that, but the thing we need to do more immediately is get caught up on some of the other sides, like the scheduling. We need to have that connected back to Google Calendars. That's still not connected to Google Calendar or Outlook, like stuff like that. QuickBooks integration, EagleView integration, Company Cam integration. These are all things that we are high on the to-do list that we got to.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So that's good to know too, just so I can, as I'm talking to some of these people, I feel like we're at the spot in ProLine where it's almost like you want only the people that really find out about it to come on board, because you're accepting of any of the quirks and or like, hey, we're not there yet, but it's like, no, I know that's why I came here, because I'm a part of that
Yeah.
growth. But then it's helpful for me to know too, because as I'm getting the feel for who's using what systems, like I know then when the right time to re-engage with those people is going to be then to bring it back up. So
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I was just talking to John earlier today. There's like, I wish it was just perfect. I want to be better than everybody else. I want to crush every other CRM. But it's the downside of the direction that we went is there's lots of pros, but one of the cons is there's now a lot of things that need to get worked on. Like there's a lot of more features to maintain, a lot more features to improve. So, but yeah, I think we'll get around to everything. We're just gonna keep building and making it
the
better.
the feedback I think today was like, right now this is probably the ideal ProLine client is somebody like Nate, where he's like, I don't need all that other stuff. And he's like, dude, I'll use Sumos for half my customers, but half the people I'm just sending them a QuickBooks estimate. And I'm like, that's great, because it fills that, it's like with one less thing outside the program for him to have to go do now, where it's like, great, you're still going to use Sumos, but now you can just keep everything in ProLine for those other people, and it saves you a couple steps there. So that was kind of a good one. I know we're talking lead hash on this stuff, but I'm just trying to think out loud if there's any other things that I've spoken with people recently. Um, I don't know. I think it would be good if you guys just make a quick training video about customizing your message or something. Because like I feel that if you just, when people go in here, it's like customize one message. Just go in and customize one message yourself so that it's done. Like, but I know they're here, but like, how do you make people go in and want to do that later almost. Cause like I feel like there was some where we had that intent and then we forgot about it after the words. And then we never really like, and I don't know if that's because maybe the ProLine newsletters are going to the junk email or whatever, but
We're sending when we were working on the CRM, we stopped sending much, but the this is part of the pro with, or part of like the advantage with going with ProLine is that we do have all that stuff set up, right? It's not perfect,
yep.
but it's so much better than what most people, because like you're saying, people just don't get around to doing it. And so at least if we can get something that is way better than what they would have if they didn't set anything up,
Yep.
it's
And
already.
that's what I sell it to people. And I use my own use cases. I waited on ProLine for like 7 months because I was just going to do them myself. And then it's like, you never do it, or the 1 year, 2 you create, it's just like, this isn't that good. And then it's the thing of also, it's like, hey, these were written for other customers, maybe that you wouldn't have written it that way. And there's a good thing that you didn't write it that way because the way you wrote it would not have gotten the engagement that some of these are. So, but I think, like I tell everybody about like using the company camp projects page, including links to go back to your own website, things of that nature of like, just spice it up just a little bit with a link or something like that to personalize it. Or make it so that you like, and I would say I give you guys a ton of credit because most of those messages in there, it's like I see the ones that people respond to, and I'm like, I would never guess that that's the one that gets somebody's attention sometimes, but it is. And so it's like, it's a really well structured sequence that it's just saves you so many hours of thinking. And most of us contractors are not the wordsmiths of the world. And so it's better instead of the guys, your sales guys writing their own things, their follow up saying, hey, y'all, call me so I can get your insurance to pay for the roof. It's like, no, have an actual message that makes you sound like a real person that's there to help. So, like, the home run ones, I love those too, because like it's funny because like some people don't give a shit about baseball, but there's some like the old geezer that's like watching baseball one day and then he sees the home run and it's like just that trigger, like those little things. It's very good, personable link to it. So
I appreciate that. That's you're right. I think ideally, if they can start with what we wrote, but then spice it up a little bit, that's definitely ideal. Especially as more people start using ProLine in the same markets, they all have the same.
Yeah, 6 texts from
6 different contractors with the same message would not be ideal.
Well, maybe that's part of your guys' white glove. I don't know. It's just part of something that you guys ask along the way of like, hey, do you got these things set up already on your website or whatever? And if so, let's put these in and we'll like, you guys include that as part of that white glove where it's a couple of those message customizations. Because like if I start doing that for some people or implement it, like that's what I'll just go in and do is say, here's the base, and now let me write some custom ones for you and your person. Like, I don't know.
That's what I'm hoping. I think there's, as we grow and have more people using ProLine, there's going to be a huge need that we can't meet for exactly what you're saying, which is like going in and doing customization to their company, optimizing. Here's the thing. I really appreciate the feedback on the on our templates, but the reality, and the templates are well tested. Like there's a lot of people using them with great results, but at the end of the day, like those are, I've thought so many times like, oh, maybe we should like hire someone to go in and make those even better, because they're fine and they're good and they get results, but they definitely could be better. And they so like and that's somewhat intentional. It's like, hey, you get something that's good when you sign up pre-written. But yeah,
and it's still, they don't look generic. Like they don't look like it's just a robot. It looks like it's written by an actual person. So yeah, I'm not knocking it by any means at all. It's just one of those things where I'm thinking of like the little things that we did, and with like the Mike Stearns idea of Conversion Max, where he's focused on building the video for those people as a part of like that text follow up and rehash. Like, okay, just do it in ProLine. It's so much easier to just link to your website and not have all those layers of stuff. And so it's like, that's more of the, like, maybe it's white glove, or maybe that's the handoff of like, hey, now you go talk to Chris because he's there to help with the video. He can do your Canvas stuff, ABC. And then it's like, it keeps you focused on the stuff that you guys should be focused on. And then it still allows you to assist those customers that are looking for those additional like white glove and or like just done for me stuff that it's out of your guys' scope then.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like we'll do some of that white glove, but that is from our perspective more, I would rather hand it off to you. I would rather
Yeah.
be like, hey, we've done what we've set you up, right? This is what we recommend. If you're looking for more, and you want to get deeper and like customize message by message, then like contact Chris. Like Chris is the guy.
Because that's
What
where
we're gonna do.
you can almost basically say it's like, okay, well, who's your ideal customer? Because how you're going to write a text campaign is going to determine like based on that ideal customer. And they're like, well, and it's like, okay, yeah, you need to go talk to Chris and he'll help you create that. And then if you want to do a specific campaign, A, B, C, whatever, that's fine.
Truthfully, we try to stay away from like customizing the unless there's the way that here's how we usually handle it. Even with the white, we haven't done. I'm trying to think if have we sold a white glove yet? We have a lot of people talking about doing the white glove, but not. I don't think we've necessarily sold it. But the whole with the way that we're approaching it is, hey, if you have something specific that you want us to add, like you got to give us the email that you want sent. We'll put it in for you during onboarding, but we don't custom write. That's kind of the line for us is like we don't custom write anything for you. You're going to use our templates, or you can send us a template to paste in for you, and we'll put it in and make sure it's formatted right. But there's no in between. Like you're not going to tell us, hey, I want it to say something like this. We're not going to go and use creative, because part of it for us too is like as we grow and have people onboarding, we can't train everyone to be a professional copywriter and know how to onboard people. So it's much better for us to just be like, hey, like send us something specific, or just use our templates. If you want more in-depth customization that's done for you or guided with you, here's Chris. Like talk to Chris.
I'll make a digital collateral for that where it's essentially like, hey, this is great, but it's for if you need something extra, here's what my service list and what we can do. And then if there's people that are like, because that might be that good in between for those guys that are like, they think they want white glove, but they don't really necessarily need it. And that's like, great, don't spend that money on that and just get them into I'll get on board and get implemented with these 4 things instead of full white glove. Like, and it's something where it helps you just get that sale faster, and they didn't need the best package anyways, and they weren't going to buy it. So, cool. Do you guys have any resources for me separately for like or this is maybe a separate conversation we'll schedule is like ProLine versus I'd say Leap and or Job Nimbus. And I think I need to just understand the capabilities from how Kenny and Eric use it in their businesses, and then say like, here's some features maybe that I want to make sure in ProLine before they would make the switch. But they're, as I've seen it, at least everybody seems to be very simplistic on what they actually do in their CRMs, and it's really overbuilt for what they have. So it's like there's almost nothing. It's like
it depends so much on what they're doing. Like you're saying, it depends because so many people are using Job Nimbus and all they're doing is moving contacts from status to status, right? That's I'd say 8 out of 10 people use Job Nimbus. They're not actually using Job Nimbus. They're just using the Kanban boards.
Yes.
And we have that, right? Plus we have all those automations pre-written and can make you a lot of money just by making that switch with there's not really additional work. You're going to do exactly what you're already doing. The behavior is very similar. Maybe it looks prettier, right? Like it's going to be, but you're gaining all that automation ability like right off the bat, right? So that's a no-brainer. If they're doing where I think we're still lacking a lot. So like we have that the business report, right? But we have 6 items here, or sorry, 8 items, 8 KPIs. This is it. This is our whole business analytics. We do have the ability to do zip codes. So just like you asked, so you can it's based on all the zip codes of your current projects, and you can, search for them. And so you can view it by zip codes. You can view it by team member, start date, end date, tag, services. You have the ability to drill down and see the number of projects, the total revenue, the gross profit. And this is the most important stuff, but we have already run into situations where someone's like, well, I really want to track this thing. I was like, we'll have it eventually, right?
Can you send me just a sample data file of what the output of that is? Because I have a guy that I'm working with to help me build the dashboard in Power BI. And like for people in Job Nimbus or people in this, where if you can just export it into a sheet I don't know if is that data
It's not
exportable?
exportable right now. No,
Okay.
it probably will be in the future,
Okay.
but right now this is what you have. You
How do
can
so what's the data that I get if I go to a lead? Let's say I left ProLine and I said, I want to take my data with me. What's the format that the data comes in? Like, is this information part of that data or is it just customer data then?
if you wanted to pull your data out of ProLine,
Yeah, it's like are these
yeah,
stats then?
we do it manually right now, and
Okay.
it would include all the raw data that we're using here. So it would include like all of your so the so we're pulling all that data out of a few different places here in each individual project. So one of them is the status. We have these hard-coded statuses that are used for tracking. So like when a lead goes from lead to open, which usually coincides with them getting a quote, right? It's an open quote. Then that is what factors into lead conversion. That's what allows us to track lead conversion. They're your percentage of leads that go to open or receive a quote. So that's we're using that. We're using the information from the budget tab in here. So revenue and any costs that you have. So materials, labor, commission, gross profit, gross margin. So we have this under each.
Is it stored in a database or something? Like, is
Yeah,
that
it's in our database. All this is stored in the database. So we can export it for you if
well?
you.
Here's what I'm thinking is I think if I'll figure out a contractor that's like on this and we'll see if we can. I want to talk to Alon about how linking up to a database in Power BI, because maybe it's something where with what we're building for the other data sets in other programs, like it's not a different modification to just link to some set of data where that Power BI dashboard, like you could use that dashboard instead almost. It's I've never used it in my corporate America world, but I know a couple people that did, and it's like just wild. It's like 18 levels deep on pivot tables on steroids, essentially, where and it can handle so many different data sources actively all at once that I don't fully understand all the capabilities, but it's just something where it's like you can connect it and then everything's live and it updates for you, and it'd keep you maybe from potentially reprogramming all of your guys' reporting capabilities. And it's just Microsoft's tool.
Are you talking about like an API connection, or are you talking about just getting access to
No, it would be just I don't know the specifics on how the data like you send and receive. Like he's like, oh, if you get into CSV, then you can just import it. But if it's something where you can link, like it can pull data from it. But essentially, if you have 20 sources of data, it pulls it quickly, connects it, and so you can. It's a lot of like what if analysis. So I said to him, I said, my goal is I want to be able to say like what would happen if I were to give all the leads from Steve to Bob because Steve is good in these areas and Bob is bad in these areas, and I realigned it. What could my revenue look like for the second half of the year if I reallocated based on this? And it's like it's pretty easy to then it does the back end for you. And so it's just there's the list of questions that I'm building. It's all the stuff that every owner would want to know. Where it's like, hey, what are my top 5 cities where he's good, and what are the things that he's best at, and essentially gives them that hyper focused data. So like I like the fishing analogy where it's like, listen, man, Steve's good at bass, Jim's good at trout. Send him to the stream, send him to the pond, and both of these lures when you send them with these two guys in those two locations, they fucking kill it every time. So that's what we're going to help you do is show you where you perform the best, whether you know that or not, and then help you make better decisions on what you're going to go after. And so that could be like, hey, we're going to do targeted lead campaigns in these 3 cities where we're going to have some special ProLine campaigns that go out to these customers and these customers. And this is something where it's like we would just have the list of it, but it's more of being able to get that data and then make that decision. So I don't know if I showed you guys that thing that I was working on, but I essentially ranked his 3 sales guys against the team averages and showed their top 5 cities, bottom 5 cities, and like compared leads to revenue. So like what's their percentage of leads that they get from the company versus their percentage of revenue that they deliver for the company in that city, and how does it compare to the rest of the team? And so like there's a couple things where it was like, oh yeah, we knew these, but then there was a few where it's like, I didn't realize he was that good above the average in these other cities, and his ticket prices are so high compared to the other 2 guys who also ran 15 leads. Why are their ticket prices so much lower for running similar jobs? So I'm working on that. Once I get it built for Job Notice, I'll share it with you guys just so you can see it, and then we can kind of go from there just to see what, if anything, it's of value. But I think that's where you guys can come in and get really under the radar and just take everybody else's lunches by giving people access to that data. Because you guys, the more you build this out, and I'm not asking for this now, I'm just saying with the AI and all the stuff you guys got behind the scenes of this, like it's just gonna be so exciting to see what this tool can really do for people. So
Yeah. So the first step towards what you're talking about would just be like, it's been on my list to add CSV exports to these pages. So for a business report, project list, and contact list, the ability to export the results
yep.
on those pages from those searches as CSV documents. It's not super hard. I'd say it's still not the highest priority just because you have so much else going on.
It's all
But
good.
the first step. In the meantime, if you have an account that you're working with that you need the data, I can export it pretty easily manually and send it to you to analyze. I'd say it's going to be a while before we could do any kind of, we need to have an open API eventually. That's what would allow what you're talking about, where it would automatically update. And we need to have that eventually. It's just not high on the priority list.
No, that makes sense. So that's
but-
cool. If I need some data for now, I'll get it then. So
Yeah. You have the data. If you need it, you got it.
yeah, and if I'll ask, send me Tresnik stuff because I know I can have Allie ask for that, but that may be just an easy one to start with.
I can send it to you right. Let me just do it right now, otherwise I want to forget about it.
That's fine. Oh shit, I got a call. I got to jump on too. I got another guy to hope.
Oh, I have a call too, so we'll wrap it up. Good to see you, Chris.
All right, AJ, Edward, John.
Bye-bye. Good
Bye.
to see you.